When dealing with puzzling and unexplained mysteries, such as out-of-place archaeological finds, strange phenomena, or inexplicable fossils, the best course of action is to call in an expert. But in some mysterious cases, mysteries have left even the experts baffled, and only time will tell if scientific advancements could provide us with answers in the future. A 13th century medieval sword that was found in the River Witham in Lincolnshire, England, has raised quite a few eyebrows in the archaeological world, and to date has left experts baffled and puzzled over its true origins. The sword was found underwater in 1825, and at first glance it doesn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary. It weighs 2 pounds and 10 ounces, and measures 38 inches in length. It's forged out of steel and has a double edge with a hilt that's in the shape of a cross. But upon closer inspection, it has a few characteristics that seem out of place, and there are no plausible theories to explain them. On one side of the sword, an inscription can be seen that was created with gold wire and inlaid into the steel. No one who has inspected the sword was able to figure out what the inscription means or what it's meant to represent. It's not uncommon, however, to find inscribed swords, especially from the 13th century Europe, but the messages on these swords are usually pretty clear. A graduate student from the Netherlands states that these types of swords were hugely popular during the time that they'd been found in Poland, France, Sweden, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. But this one remains enigmatic. Some people believe that the inscription could be magical, and it's believed to give the wielder mystical powers during battle. Others have theorized that it may be a spiritual blessing that's meant to protect the sword's owner from harm. Another theory is that it's merely an elaborate signature placed there by the bladesmith that created it. For now, all we know is that it was forged in Germany around 800 years ago, and that it ended up in England where it was rediscovered. As for the strange inscription, it remains an unsolved mystery that will hopefully one day be solved. It's not very often that a fossil is found that leaves scientists completely puzzled. Usually, a fossil is quickly identified and its origins, genus, and species are recorded, but sometimes it isn't quite that simple. One such fossil, Tully Monster, also known as the Tully Monster, was discovered by a fossil collector named Francis Tully in the 1950s in the Mason Creek fossil bed in Grundy County, Illinois. Due to the fact that scientists have been unable to place it in one specific group of animals, it's gained worldwide recognition and has since become the state fossil of Illinois. At first, scientists believed that it was a type of slug creature, since its eyes protrude outwards from its body on stalks. But they found that it has a thin, elongated appendage where they would expect its mouth to be. Even more baffling, the appendage ends in what appears to be a strange set of claws. The fossil has caused so much confusion that experts have been unable to agree on whether it's a vertebrate creature that contains a backbone or an invertebrate that has no backbone, such as insects, slugs, and jellyfish. Some scientists believe that the creature is a type of worm or mollusk, but one study that was conducted in 2016 suggested that it was in fact a lamprey-type fish, but that theory has been dismissed by many other scientists, as lamprey fossils found in the same area look no different from living ones that we know today. The creature is so strange that scientists disagree even on the smallest details, such as which side of the fossil is the top. Some claim that it had complex eyes that contained pigment granules called melanosomes, and therefore must be a vertebrate, while others found that it had cup-shaped eyes, making it more likely that it was an invertebrate. Many conflicting theories and studies have been conducted and put forward since its discovery, but we are seemingly no closer to finding a definitive answer. For now, the Tully Monster fossil remains an unsolved mystery that has no explanation. In 1889, a group of settlers that had traveled to Nampa in Idaho made a strange archaeological discovery that might change the way we think about human civilization more than 2 million years ago. A few of the settlers were drilling for water when they made the mysterious discovery, a figurine made out of clay and stone, now known as the Nampa stone doll. That may not seem like much, but the fact that it was 300 feet below the ground has left scientists baffled. The figurine stands about 1.9 inches tall and resembles a human with the head, legs, and arms. As the doll was inadvertently brought to the surface along with large amounts of rock and clay, it was very likely damaged as part of its leg seems to be missing. The depth at which it was found suggests that it was from a time period when humans were not present in the western United States, and therefore many scientists have speculated that it's not authentic to that time period. When the figurine was examined by the Smithsonian's archaeology world, they speculated that it was depicted as wearing European clothes, and they've come up with a few theories as to its actual origin. They speculate that it may have been created by someone with savant autism, which would mean that they were extremely skilled at making objects out of mud. The syndrome may have been stigmatized at the time, and the person's family may have buried the doll to hide the fact that they were suffering from it. Another theory suggests that it was crafted by the first early modern humans who made their way to Europe. This would, however, date the strange object to around 48,000 years ago, making this far less plausible. It's also been speculated that it was from Africa and made by a slave who would not have had permission to do so, and they decided to bury it before they were caught. It could have also been used by slaves as a digging tool that simply got lost in the dirt. A further theory suggests that it symbolizes the culture of a civilization that's been lost to time. This is due to the fact that it has geometric markings on its chest, which could be suggestive of jewelry or clothing, making it likely that it's a depiction of someone of importance. The figurine is currently on display at the Idaho Historical Society, and until further research provides more information, the mystery of the Nampa stone doll remains unsolved. We're all familiar with the mythology of Excalibur, the sword that was pulled from a stone by Arthur, proving that he was the rightful king of England. But not many people know that such a sword does really exist in Tuscany in Italy, and some believe that it's the true inspiration for the tale of Excalibur. The sword in the stone of St. Galgano currently resides in a chapel located southwest of Siena. The only visible parts of the sword are the hilt, the wooden handle, and a few inches of the actual blade. For a long time, the sword was thought to be a fake, as it seems impossible to thrust a blade into solid rock. But recently, scientific tests have been carried out to determine whether it really was a hoax or if the sword is in fact real. A man has stated that the metal was dated and its composition as well as its style appears to be from the correct period of time, the 12th century, and therefore it certainly isn't a fake. Furthermore, ground-penetrating radar was used to determine that the rest of the blade is intact within the rock. But even more baffling is the discovery that there's a cavity beneath the sword, indicating that its owner may be buried there. But this cannot be confirmed without further excavation. The same chapel also contains a set of mummified hands that have also been dated to the 12th century. Legend has it that anyone who attempted to steal the sword would suffer the same fate of losing their hands. The tale of this sword claims that Galgano, a knight, received a vision from the archangel Michael, who told him that it was time for him to change his life. He agreed and decided that he would start living a life of a hermit. As he scaled a mountain to devote his life to hermetism, he heard a voice that told him to leave all traces of worldly sin behind. He replied that it would be easier to cut a stone with his sword than to do that, and when he struck the stone to prove his point, his sword penetrated the rock without resistance and remains there today. But these are all just theories and legends, and the sword's true origins remain a puzzling, unsolved mystery. The stone statues of Bada Valley are still considered to be historical artifacts that remain unexplained by scientists. Located in Lore Lindu National Park in Indonesia, the statues are estimated to date back to the 14th century, but not much else is known about them. Many of the strange human-like stone carvings have been found in the area, but the stones that they're carved from do not seem to be native to the area, meaning that they were created elsewhere before being brought to their current site. People who currently live in Bada Valley say that the statues have always been there, and Europeans first discovered them in 1908. A missionary found that nuts were brought to one of the statues during a time when there wasn't enough rain for a healthy harvest. One of the carvings is known as the Entertainer, which could possibly represent the first mythological inhabitant of the area. It's believed that this particular statue received offerings before a new project was undertaken to ensure its success. Another of the statues is referred to as Maturu, or sleeping, and another, known as Oba, seems to have similar characteristics to those of a chimp. Many of the stones have been carved to show huge heads with straight bodies that have no legs. They also have round eyes, a single unibrow, cheeks, and chins. The megaliths were only officially documented in 2001 by scientists from the Nature Conservancy in a bid to help keep them from being damaged. During that time, over 400 of the statues were found in the area, ranging in size from just a few inches to over 15 feet tall. Adding to the mystery, no tools or any signs of an ancient civilization have been found in the area, leaving many questions unanswered. Since 2015, 60 of the statues have been removed from the site illegally, and it's believed that they were sold to unprincipled European and US collectors. Their origin and purpose, however, has still not been uncovered, and for the time being, we can only speculate when the mystery will finally be solved. The infamous disappearance of Bessie and Glenn Hyde has baffled investigators and historians for almost 100 years now, and despite new investigative techniques and technologies being available, we're still no closer to the truth. Bessie Hyde had big ideas and big ambitions, and in 1926 she was getting ready to finish up her studies at Marshall College in Kentucky, with the hopes of transferring to a college in San Francisco to study art. At the time, Bessie was married to Earl Hemlick, but the marriage didn't last, and soon after, the two separated. After Earl refused to grant Bessie a divorce, but after some legal work, Bessie found a way around this, and by April of 1928, the two had officially separated. During this time of separation, Bessie had moved to Los Angeles to follow her dreams, and in doing so, she met Glenn Hyde. It was clear that Bessie and Glenn were made for each other, and the two desperately awaited the divorce to be finalized. The decree was finalized on April 11, 1928, and on April 12th, Bessie and Glenn got married, wasting no time at all. Just a few months later, the two would embark on their honeymoon, and what should have been the trip of their dreams slowly turned into a nightmare. The two were eager for their honeymoon down the Green River and Colorado River, but as the trip progressed, Bessie felt more and more uneasy and unsafe. Bessie wasn't versed in the outdoors, and while her husband was an experienced rafter, she still had apprehensions. Glenn did not carry any life jackets or safety aids on board, which did little to put Bessie's mind at ease. The newlyweds were last seen by Emery Cole at his homestead on the rim of the Grand Canyon on November 15, 1928. The two had stopped off to grab some more supplies before walking out of the door, never to be seen again. When they failed to return from their honeymoon, their families knew that something was very wrong. A search party was put together to look for the couple, and a month after the two had disappeared, their boat was found abandoned in the river. What struck the searchers as odd was that the boat had more than enough supplies for the trip, and some of the couple's personal belongings had been left behind. This indicated that the two had possibly encountered some trouble while out on the water, and had unfortunately not made it back on board. Weeks passed and the search began to dwindle as no evidence of the couple could be found. Their families still held out hope that they would one day find out what happened to their loved ones. But almost 100 years later, we're still no closer to the truth. In 1971, there was a glimmer of hope in the case, when a group of men boating down the Colorado River ran into a woman who claimed to be Bessie Hyde. This woman told the men that her new name was Georgia Clark and explained that she and Glenn had gotten into an argument during their honeymoon and that she had taken his life and had run away in order to start a new life. While this seemed like the lead that investigators had been waiting for, it turned out to be false. The woman was not Bessie Hyde, and she was identified as Elizabeth Cutler from Pomeroy, Ohio. Over the years, there have been numerous theories about what happened to Bessie and Glenn. Some believe that the two went hiking in the woods and disappeared there, while others believe that perhaps Bessie's ex-husband is the one to blame. Since that fateful day in 1928, the case of Bessie and Glenn Hyde has remained a mystery, and with the 100th anniversary soon around the corner, it appears to be another case lost to time. Jeff Boiler had recently left the United States Marine Corps and was wondering what direction his life was going to take. After talking to friends and looking around, Jeff settled on a career in the Wasco County Sheriff's Office in Wasco County, Oregon. His time in the Marines had given him valuable skills and also a level of fitness that was comparable with the police force. Jeff excelled at his job and quickly climbed through the ranks to become a deputy sheriff. Jeff enjoyed his job, and each day he would walk into the office wondering what challenge he would face today. In early 1997, after a morning on the job, Jeff was told that he could leave work early and have the rest of the day to himself. Not wanting to waste a good day, Jeff packed up his things and headed out into the Cascade Mountains. A friend of his was buried up in the woods of the mountains, and Jeff thought that his early finish was a better time than ever to head out there. As he reached the woods and grabbed his equipment, he could never have anticipated what he would encounter. Exactly what Jeff Boiler encountered that day remains a mystery, and is an event that is still talked about to this day. According to Jeff, after 2 miles of hiking uphill, he found himself in a dense area and wanted to get back on the trail. He grabbed his map and his compass, pulling the compass up to get the right measurement. As he surveyed the map, looking for the nearest trail, he saw something out the corner of his eye. Standing above him, watching him, was what Jeff described as a humanoid shape, approximately 8 to 10 feet tall, covered in fur with a conical-shaped head. Stunned, Jeff watched as the creature ran off into the woods. Instead of running in the opposite direction, Jeff decided to get a closer look at the creature and began running towards the area where he had last spotted it. After reaching the area and searching around, Jeff couldn't see anything, so he decided to head back to his car and head home. And that's when the chasing started. As Jeff made his way through the forest, he heard loud crunching noises of trees being broken. It became clear to Jeff that he was being chased, so he took off running as fast as he could back to his car. After traversing through the forests, retracing the 2-hour route he'd taken to get there, he was finally inside of his car. As he got closer, he noticed that the snapping of trees and twigs was getting louder and louder, and that the creature that he'd seen was closing in on it. Luckily for Jeff, he managed to reach his car in time, prompting the creature to back off. Jeff headed for the sheriff's office and told his colleagues what had happened. The sheriff, who was still on duty, told Jeff that there'd been an increasing number of reports of a large hairy creature in the woods lately. Jeff now believes that he encountered a Sasquatch and thanks his lucky stars that he was able to get back to his car in time. For centuries, the mystery of the location of Cleopatra's tomb has stumped historians and is one of the world's oldest historical mysteries. While everyone is familiar with Cleopatra and her reign in ancient Egypt, nobody has ever been able to find her tomb, and historians and archaeologists alike believe that her tomb likely holds some very interesting artifacts and information. Queen Cleopatra wasn't just the beauty queen that she is so often depicted to be in films and popular culture. By the time she became queen at 18 years old, she spoke 9 languages and was a keen student of politics, economics, and math. Cleopatra wasn't even Egyptian, making her stand out even more in history. The tales of Cleopatra and her reign have been recited and told for many centuries, but there's one piece of the puzzle missing, and that is her final resting place. She was the last leader of her dynasty, and like Cleopatra, the final resting places of those who served before her have also never been discovered, leaving a large gap in archaeological and historical knowledge. Some experts believe that Cleopatra's tomb can be found in Alexandria, which was, unfortunately, the site of natural disasters among other things. Numerous excavations have taken place across Egypt, but no one has been able to find any sign of her. New research and discoveries have indicated that Cleopatra may be buried at the Temple of Taposiris Magna, just 30 miles from the famed site of Alexandria. Experts have been working tirelessly to uncover the secrets of the temple, but so far there's no sign of Cleopatra. 2 mummies were discovered in this temple, with traces of gold leaf, something that was reserved for the highest in society. Experts believe that these 2 mummies and the temple hold the answer to the historical mystery of the location of Cleopatra's tomb. But as of right now, scientists are still working on the area, and only time will tell. The Empire of Axum had flown under the radar for centuries, and its existence has yet to be told to the public at large. While the other great empires of Rome, China, and Persia are often talked about in history and popular culture, the Axum Empire has largely remained a mystery. Until the 6th century, this unknown kingdom thrived and prospered, only to disappear and be lost to the sands of time. The kingdom is located in modern-day Ethiopia. The empire was powerful and large, so how come it has gone unheard of for so many centuries? And why haven't experts been able to determine its origins? The empire was by no means poor either, and was known to export ivory, gold, emeralds, myrrh, and salt across Africa and the rest of the world. The empire thrived, making good connections across the world, but then in the late 6th century, everything changed. Christianity became the religion of choice in Axum, and as new groups migrated to the area and brought with them new ideas and beliefs, the leaders slowly lost their grip. Offshoots and independent states began to spring up across the empire, and it became impossible to stop the spread of independence movements. As the centuries have gone by, new countries, kingdoms, and groups have inhabited the area, claiming it as their own and starting new civilizations. While the origins of Axum remain a mystery to experts, one piece of the historical puzzle was finally solved. While the other empires fell greatly, Axum fell slowly, and the land has now morphed into what we know as Ethiopia. Some people in Ethiopia keep the traditions of their ancestors, meaning that the empire has never really gone away, unlike the Roman Empire. Experts are still working to uncover the mysterious beginnings of this empire, and who knows what answers they'll find. Stories of UFOs and cryptids are commonly associated with North America, but in the 19th century, fishermen in the Itachi region of Japan experienced something that nobody has ever been able to explain to this day. On February 22, 1803, fishermen working just off the coast saw something drifting in the distance. As they focused their eyes, they realized that it was a ship, but not the usual ship that you'd expect to see. According to sources, the men later described the ship as being 3.3 meters tall and 5.5 meters wide, much smaller than they had anticipated when they saw it out at sea. After spotting the object, the men decided to pull it ashore and get a closer look. The ship was made from red-coated rosewood and brazen plates with glass, crystal, and bars. The ship only got stranger from there, and as fishermen crept inside, hoping to find hidden treasures, they were met with writings in a strange, unidentifiable language. Other items were found inside this bizarre ship, such as some cake, beef, and water, and just as fishermen were getting to grips with their new discovery, a strange woman appeared. The woman was unlike any woman they'd seen before, with flowing red hair and exquisite clothing. The fishermen tried to talk to the woman, but nobody could understand the language she was speaking. The fate of this strange woman is not known, and the fishermen and village people were convinced that they encountered an alien and a UFO that day. The story of the UFO was well documented, with statements and stories being written down. Years later, Japan would also see other similar incidents, and these stories have been investigated over the years. Did the fishermen really see a UFO that day? Or is there a much more logical explanation for this story? 21-year-old Kesha Jacobs became a missing person on the 26th of September, 2016, and she has still not been seen or heard from since. On that day, Kesha left her mother's house in Westover, in Richmond, Virginia, after texting her mother to inform her that she was planning to spend the night at one of her friends' houses. Not long after, she texted her mother again, saying that she had arrived at the house and that she would be back home the following morning. But the next morning, she didn't return home as planned, and her mother reported her as a missing person on the 28th of September at the Richmond Police Department. When her friends were questioned, they stated that they dropped Kesha off at a man's house. They added that the house was located in the 3100 block of East Broad Street, which is close to Chimborazo Park in Church Hill. Police traveled to the apartment and questioned the man, and he admitted to seeing Kesha, but stated that she was only at his place for a few minutes before she was picked up by someone else. Since the day of her mysterious disappearance, Kesha's bank account, phone records, and social media accounts have seen no activity, and investigators have stated that they suspect foul play to be involved. A $3,000 reward has been offered to anyone with information leading to her whereabouts. Kesha is described as having brown hair and brown eyes. She stands 5 foot 3 inches tall and weighs around 100 pounds. She also has a tattoo of a leaf on her right foot, another of an animal paw print on her right thigh, the name Tony on her left shoulder, and a flower on both her right wrist and right shoulder. When she was last seen, she was wearing black basketball shorts, a pink scarf on her head, and pink and black Nike basketball shoes. Anyone with information on Kesha's case is asked to contact the Richmond Police Department at 804-646-5125. Benjamin Morse Archer is a 32-year-old man from Delaware City, Delaware, who mysteriously vanished on the 2nd of March, 2016, and his case remains unsolved. At around 6 a.m. that morning, Benjamin left his mother's house, and when he didn't return, his brother and stepfather went out to search for him. They found him in DuPont State Park, where they noticed that he was barefoot and shivering from the cold. They attempted to take him home, but he refused to leave, saying that he needed to bless the park. His brother and stepfather relayed this information to his mother, who then returned to the park to talk to him and to take him some warm clothes. But by the time she got there, he was gone, and she decided to leave the clothing and a pair of boots in the park, hoping that he would find them when he returned. The family went back to the park that evening to continue searching, but they found that the clothing was still where his mother had left it. The boots, however, were gone. The family's concerns grew for Benjamin's safety as he didn't have his phone, identification, or money with him when he disappeared. He also needs medical attention due to a car accident that he was involved in the past. Benjamin is described as having blonde hair and brown eyes. He weighs 165 pounds and stands 6 foot 1 inches tall. The last time he was seen, he was wearing gray yoga pants and a striped green and white polo jacket. It's believed that Benjamin is the one who took the boots from the park, and he may be wearing them. They're described as rubber, unlined, light camouflage print boots. He may, however, be barefoot. No further leads have been found in Benjamin's unsolved case, and anyone who has information on what may have happened to him is urged to contact the Delaware City Police Department at 302-836-6344. At the time of her strange disappearance, 24-year-old Alexis Gabe was living in an apartment with her parents in Oakley, California. After graduating from nursing school, she worked with Rite Aid and is described by her family as a caring and compassionate person. On the 26th of January, 2022, Alexis left the apartment at around 6:30 p.m., telling her parents that she would be going to her boyfriend's house on Bentry Way. It's here that she was last seen at around 9 p.m. When she didn't return home, she was reported missing under suspicious circumstances at the Oakley Police Department on the 27th of January. On that same day, her car was found on Trenton Street by two of her nieces with the keys still in the ignition. Investigators checked CCTV surveillance footage from the area, and they spotted someone getting out of Alexis's car's driver's side and walking away from the vehicle at around 9:30 on the day of her disappearance. Officers stated that the unidentified man looks to be around 6 feet tall with a slim build and dark complexion. In the footage, he is seen wearing an oversized jacket, a beanie or hat, and an N95 type mask that only covers part of his beard. The footage was obtained from the corner of Oakley Road and Belden Lane, which is situated around 5 minutes from the spot where Alexis's car was found. The house where she was last seen was thoroughly searched, and investigators removed several large bags and a vacuum cleaner from the home. Alexis's boyfriend has been questioned on several occasions, but a suspect is still to be named. Her cell phone case was later found by searchers in Antioch, and it was sent for forensic testing. On the 16th of May, the city of Oakley announced that the $10,000 reward for information in Alexis's case was raised to $60,000 after an anonymous person donated $50,000 to the cause. On the 25th of May, however, it was increased again, this time to $100,000. Although the circumstances surrounding Alexis's disappearance remain unknown, investigators believe that foul play was involved, and they've asked that anyone with information come forward. Alexis has long brown hair and brown eyes. She stands 5 foot 7 inches tall and weighs 170 pounds. She was last seen wearing a white tank top, a black silver-hooded sweatshirt, black jeans, white and green Jordan sneakers, and her glasses. If you or anyone you know has information on Alexis's disappearance or current whereabouts, you can contact the Oakley Police Department at 925-625-8060 or their tip line at 925-625-7009. Matthew Weaver Jr., a 21-year-old man from Simi Valley, California, was last seen on the 10th of August 2018. And he remains missing to this day. At around 11:55 that night, he sent a text message to one of his friends saying that something crazy was going on and he wanted to talk while he still had the chance to do so. The text was later found to have been sent from the Las Rosas Overlook area in the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. When CCTV surveillance footage was checked, Matthew was spotted driving his silver BMW on the Topanga Tower motorway at approximately 7:15, heading in the direction of the Las Rosas Overlook. Just after midnight on the day of Matthew's disappearance, hikers reported that they had heard a man and a woman screaming for help in the area where Matthew was spotted driving his car. A search was launched to find the man and woman, and Matthew's car was discovered abandoned on the Topanga Tower motorway above the Backbone Trail in Hondo Canyon. In January of 2019, Matthew's car keys were found by hikers 25 feet from the area where his car was discovered. Aerial photos of the Santa Monica Mountain Wilderness helped Matthew's family to recover a baseball cap and ripped shirt that is believed to have belonged to Matthew. The shirt was found to contain what seems to be biological material, although it's unknown to who it may have belonged. A few of Matthew's friends reported that he had suffered a blow to the head shortly before he mysteriously disappeared, and that they believe this may have caused him to behave out of character. At the time, he had just moved into his own apartment in the Granada Hills area, and had started a new job where he was working on power lines. Matthew is described as 5 foot 8 inches tall and weighs around 140 pounds. He has brown hair and brown eyes and was last seen wearing a black or white t-shirt, black Dickies pants, red shoes, and a Los Angeles Angels baseball cap. He also has a tattoo of the name Jeremiah on the left side of his chest. Anyone who has information on Matthew's case or his disappearance is asked to contact the Los Angeles Police Department at 877-275-5273. Matthew's NamUs case number is MP51786. Jasmine Moody, a 19-year-old woman from Detroit, Michigan, became a missing person on the 4th of December 2014 after visiting a friend's home. At the time, Jasmine was a freshman at Texas Women's University, where she was undergoing training through the school's ROTC program, which would have helped her to become a member of the United States Armed Forces. On the 25th of November, she flew from Texas to Detroit, where she visited with her friend Brittany Gurley, who she had met online. Brittany's home was located in the 3700 block of Baldwin, near Van Dyke and Mack. But on the 4th of December, the day of her disappearance, the two women got into a heated argument over social media posts that Jasmine had made. Brittany told investigators that at around 7:30 p.m., Jasmine put on a hoodie and left the house without taking any of her personal belongings with her. As she was supposed to catch her bus back home that night, the Gurley family searched for her for about 15 minutes before contacting the authorities. She was reported missing at the Detroit Police Department, and when investigators searched the Gurley's house, they found Jasmine's cell phone, jacket, ID, purse, and the rest of her personal belongings had been left behind as reported. The Michigan State Police Crime Lab was contacted and they conducted a thorough investigation at the house. Police organized a search of the area surrounding the house, but they were unable to find any clues that could lead to her whereabouts. Jasmine's family hired a private investigator in hopes that fresh leads would be uncovered. But despite conducting several more interviews and the use of search dogs, no further information was found. Her family has stated that it's extremely out of character for Jasmine to stay out of touch, and thus they believe that foul play is involved in her strange disappearance. They've described Jasmine as having black hair and brown eyes. She stands 5 foot 5 inches tall and weighs approximately 130 pounds. She can also be identified from a tattoo of a flower located on her stomach. She also has piercings in her tongue and nose. The last time that she was seen, Jasmine was wearing blue jeans, a white hoodie with the words Texas Women's University in burgundy letters, and brown boots. A $2,500 reward is being offered, and if you have any information on Jasmine's case, you're asked to contact the Detroit Police Department at 313-596-2221 or Crime Stoppers at 800-773-2587. Jasmine's NamUs case number is MP27040. On October 25, 2010, months before his strange disappearance, 38-year-old Eric Franks had dinner with his mother. Eric was optimistic. An ex-girlfriend had recently reached out to him to tell him that he had a teenage daughter. Eager to meet her and reconnect with the girl's mother, Kendra, he decided to move to Saginaw, Michigan, in order to be nearer to them. However, a few months later, in March of 2011, Eric vanished without a trace. Although Eric was new to Michigan and still living in a local motel, he was eager to build a relationship with his daughter, and had recently told his family that there was no way he would ever leave them. He spoke regularly on the phone with his mother, including on March 10, 2011. Just 24 hours before the last sighting of him. When she stopped hearing from him, Eric's mother grew concerned and reported him as a missing person. Police began their investigation by checking first with his ex-girlfriend, Kendra. She said she had last seen Eric on March 11th, moving his belongings out of his hotel room and driving north in his 2001 Chevrolet. However, the motel owner said that he did not see Eric moving his items out, just Kendra. If this is true, it would put the last known sighting of Eric during the prior week, when he paid his rent. Police found no leads as to where Eric might have vanished after March 11th. He didn't contact his family, Kendra, or his daughter. There was little movement on the unsolved case for almost 10 years. In 2020, however, there was a breakthrough. Eric's car was discovered after it was purchased at an estate sale. It had been abandoned in the garage of an elderly man who Eric's ex-girlfriend Kendra had purportedly cared for. When the man passed, the car was sold. Unfortunately, Kendra could not be questioned about the mysterious disappearance of Eric, as she too passed away in 2016. Since the discovery of the car, no additional information has been released by investigators on Eric's case. Eric's family runs a Facebook page called Find Eric Lee Franks. Anyone with information can contact police at 989-495-5555. Diane Teresa Francis was last seen by her 2 daughters in 2003. Since then, the women have searched tirelessly for their missing mother. Diane's youngest daughter, Sherry, recently shared her mother's life story on a Facebook page called Finding Diane Francis, in attempts to better understand her mother's life and why she might have vanished without a trace. In 1991, over a decade before her unsolved disappearance, Diane gave birth to her elder daughter, Jessica, and her daughter Sherry was born 2 years later in 1993. The following year, Diane and her 2 daughters moved to Florida from her New Jersey hometown. Diane likely began struggling with addiction around this time. By 1997, Diane was dating a man named John Boggs, who Sherry reports was physical with her mother, throwing her around and one time putting a fist through a door. By this point, Sherry and her sister Jessica had been in and out of foster care several times, and they continued to frequently come into contact with the system for the next several years. Around the year 2000, Diane broke up with John and was able to once again see her children more frequently. Sherry misses this time because her mother was a happy person. However, things spiraled, and in 2003, Sherry and Jessica went missing from her mother's care for the final time. At age 10, Sherry had seen the last glimpse that she would ever have of her mother, and it was Diane being put into a police car. Once she aged out of the system in 2009, Sherry decided to begin searching for Diane. She discovered numerous police reports for her mother, but nothing specific since November 27, 2005, when Diane was arrested for trespassing and released the following day. Although Sherry was actively searching for Diane, she didn't file a police report with investigators. However, in 2015, Diane's abusive ex-boyfriend, John Boggs, called the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to report her as a missing person case. John has not spoken to any media, so it's not possible to confirm why he chose to report her missing after so long, or if he may have more recent information as to her unknown whereabouts. Anyone with information regarding the mysterious disappearance of Diane can call the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office at 561-688-3000. Sherry's Facebook page is called Finding Diane Francis, and she also has an Instagram and a Twitter account with the handle @DianeTFrancis1. On August 16, 1996, the mysterious disappearance of Marcia Ann Ryan began when she left her home in Victoria, Australia, to visit her parents in Queensland. She had her dog, Ziggy, with her. The pair were extremely close and were never found missing from each other for very long. 33-year-old Marcia was in the process of renovating her home, and when she wasn't working on projects or playing with Ziggy, she enjoyed riding motorbikes at a nearby mountain range. Marcia's drive was planned to take several days, but when she didn't call her parents to update them on her progress, they grew worried. Their fears were confirmed when Marcia's abandoned car was discovered on the side of the highway on August 20th, 1996. It was almost out of gas, the keys were in the ignition, and the doors were unlocked. Marcia and Ziggy were not inside, and apparently had vanished without a trace. Marcia's wallet was later found by a motorist on a highway median 12 miles east of her car, backwards from the direction she had been traveling. The last confirmed sighting of Maria was made by a truck driver at nearly midnight on the night of August 19th. The driver spotted the missing person walking along the highway near where her car was later found. He offered her a ride, but she declined. He later described her demeanor as distressed, though exactly why remains an unexplained mystery. Marcia's family was understandably concerned by this sighting. Although some missing person reports indicate that the truck driver did not see Ziggy, Marcia's brother Anthony has written that he was never told by police whether or not Marcia's dog was with her when she spoke to the truck driver. Anthony believes that Marcia may have intentionally ditched her identification and chose to hitchhike towards New South Wales, where there was little press coverage of her mysterious disappearance. However, it's been more than 25 years, and Marcia has never been heard from again. Her case remains an unsolved mystery. Anyone with information regarding Marcia's missing person case can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-000. Jason Landry, a student at Texas State University, was headed home to visit his family for Christmas break when he went missing on the night of December 13, 2020. Jason, a person active at his family's church and an alumnus of the Christian summer camp Choye, was undoubtedly looking forward to relaxing after completing his final exams. However, he never arrived at home from the 2.5-hour trip, and the circumstances surrounding his mysterious disappearance are quite strange. Jason left the campus at approximately 11 p.m. on December 13th. Just after midnight, EMS officers found his damaged car on the side of a dirt road 30 miles from his college campus. He had made it less than a quarter of the way home. Investigators found the lights were on and the keys were in the ignition. Jason's wallet and cell phone were also at the crash site, but he himself had vanished without a trace and was nowhere to be found. Early on the morning of the 14th, Jason's father visited the scene of the crash, along with investigators, and found the clothes Jason had been wearing about 900 feet away. Only a very small red stain was found on Jason's clothes, the size of which did not constitute a medical emergency. Jason's father also found his missing backpack at the crash site, including his laptop and gaming equipment. Using cell phone data, investigators were able to confirm Jason's route up until about 11:30 p.m. on the 13th. At this time, he stopped using the Waze app, and further information about his location is not available. Although several searches of the area have been made by state and local detectives, no additional information about Jason has been uncovered, and his mysterious disappearance has remained an unsolved mystery since December 13th. Jason's case was in the news as recently as July of 2022, when an unconscious man who resembled him was found in New York City. Photos circulating on social media suggested the unidentified patient could somehow be the same person. Jason's parents sent identifying information to New York police. However, the man was identified as a resident of Yonkers, New York the following day. Jason's family remains hopeful that their son's strange disappearance will be solved. His parents maintain a Facebook page for him called Missing Person Jason Landry. In addition, any individuals with information regarding this unsolved case may contact the anonymous tip line at 726-777-1359 or Detective Jeff Ferry at 512-398-6777, extension 4516. 77-year-old Joanne Lawrence was a well-known eccentric in Huntsville, Ontario. For years, she could be seen on a regular basis walking along the main road, carrying bags of groceries for her pet cats. Before her mysterious disappearance, Joanne was known as a recluse who would accept rides but often refused to talk to the people who picked her up. She'd lived in Huntsville since the 1980s, accumulating litters of stray cats, up to 30 cats at a time. In her youth, Joanne was a struggling writer who was once fired for trying to write a book while she was supposed to be working. As she grew older, she lived on her small pension, paying rent for a series of apartments while saving most of her income for the cats. Sometime in 1997, roughly about a year before her mysterious disappearance, Joanne complained that the rent was too high on the attic of the unlicensed retirement home where she lived, which was actually a house owned by a woman named Catherine Land. Instead, Joanne moved into an 8x10 shed located on rural property owned by Catherine's brothers. The structure had no electricity, toilet, or running water, and was located on the side of a muddy lake. It's possible that Joanne moved here out of desperation, as she believed it was the only option she could afford for herself and her beloved cats. In addition to the terrible living conditions, Joanne began to believe that her landlords were threatening herself and her cats, and were potentially even stealing her pension checks. Before she was able to file a report, however, Joanne became a missing person in November of 1998. Early in the investigation, police suspected that the Land family might have criminal involvement in her unsolved disappearance. However, it was not until 2019 that reporters were able to uncover documents that confirmed what police found at the shed in 1998. Per these documents, it appeared that Joanne's former landlords had lied about her whereabouts. After she vanished, one of them removed her personal belongings and used a rifle on the cats in order to make the shed look abandoned. The newly released documents also revealed that the Land family was criminally defrauding residents by stealing pension checks and charging rent on unlivable buildings. Perhaps most chilling of all, Joanne's strange case has been connected with 3 other mysterious missing person cases of seniors in the Ontario area, all of whom lived on property owned by the Land family. Between 1997 and 1999, a total of 4 individuals over the age of 70 vanished without a trace. Because these people were disenfranchised and isolated from society, their cases were not fully investigated. However, thanks to media attention paid to Joanne's case, there is once again hope that this unexplained mystery may finally be solved. Anyone with information regarding Joanne's unsolved case can contact the Ontario Police at 188-310-1122. Once in a while, we stumble upon unexplained archaeological discoveries that change the way in which we see the world and our history. German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt started excavating the site of Göbekli Tepe in 1994, and the unexplained ancient artifacts that he has uncovered there have rewritten our conventional view of the rise of civilization. The site, which is situated in southeastern Anatolia and Turkey, was first noted by researchers from Chicago in 1963. But when Schmidt decided to dig further into the mystery, he was shocked to learn that it held what he believes is the world's first temple. Researchers had previously shown little interest in the site, as they believed it to be nothing more than a medieval cemetery. However, excavating began in 1994, and researchers uncovered a veritable trove of ancient artifacts that date back as far as 9,500 BCE. These included a figure resembling a lion, limestone pillars, and etchings depicting humans, snakes, foxes, boars, gazelle, ducks, vultures, and many other animals that would have been hunted by people in the area. They also found a number of smaller carved stones depicting reptiles, animal heads, and some that resembled totem poles. At first, they only uncovered a few megaliths, and were so close to the surface that they showed marks made by plows used by local farmers. As they continued to excavate the site, however, they unearthed pillars that were arranged in circles, along with a few stone hammers and blades. They then started finding thousands of animal bones, some of which showed telltale signs that the animals were hunted, skinned, and eaten by the inhabitants of Göbekli Tepe. In fact, there were so many wild animal bones that it became clear that the inhabitants were hunter-gatherers and had not yet learned how to farm or domesticate animals. Scholars have believed for a long time that temples and other complex social structures were only built after people learned to farm. But with the discovery of Göbekli Tepe, we now know that it was very likely the other way around, since it would have taken hundreds of workers to move the 7-ton stone megaliths into place, and they would have needed to be fed and housed. This would have brought about the emergence of settled communities in the area, proving that socio-cultural changes started to occur long before agriculture was ever developed, bringing about a new way of thinking as far as human development is concerned. In 1929, a man from the Sichuan province of China was repairing a sewerage ditch about 24 miles from Chengdu when he stumbled upon ancient artifacts of jade and stone. At first, it was believed that the site didn't hold much significance until archaeologists returned to the area in 1986. While doing further research on the site, they discovered 2 pits of Bronze Age treasures containing more jade, over 100 elephant tusks, and bronze sculptures that stood more than 8 feet high. This showed that the people who inhabited the area around 3,000 years ago had a greater technical ability than any other civilization at the time. The artifacts were left there by the Sanxingdui people, a lost civilization that lived in the walled city on the banks of the Minjiang River. It's believed that the culture wasn't wiped out, as is the case with many others, and that they willfully disbanded, though it's not understood why this happened. Some theories suggest that a war broke out and the inhabitants decided to relocate, while others suggest that a flood may have forced them to leave the area, but this is mere speculation. A far more likely scenario is one in which an earthquake would have caused landslides, damming up the river higher up in the mountains and cutting the Sanxingdui people off from a regular clean water supply. This theory is supported by some historical records, showing that an earthquake struck the capital of the Zhou dynasty in 1099 BC. The Sanxingdui site is 250 miles further away, but since the culture hadn't developed writing skills yet, it's possible that the epicenter was closer to the area and the quake couldn't be documented. Geological sediments also show massive flooding occurred in the area, as is recorded in the Chronicles of the Kings of Shu, a document created during the Han Dynasty. This script explains that the floods poured from a mountain in an area showing that the flow was redirected, meaning that the Sanxingdui people's water would have all but disappeared. But this is as close as we've come to explaining the disappearance of this ancient civilization, and only time will tell if we're able to find more answers for this unexplained discovery. In 1948, British diplomat Sir Alec Kirkbride first identified an unexplained archaeological discovery that has left archaeologists, scientists, and anthropologists baffled. He found the remnants of a wall that extends 93 miles over the Jordan landscape. So far, the only clues as to its age have come about thanks to pottery found in some of the towers and other sites along the wall. These date back to between 312 BC and 750 AD, which leads to the question of whether the wall was built by kingdoms or empires during that time, or whether communities copied the idea from neighboring cultures that found walls to be a useful commodity. The wall has been found to be too low and narrow to provide any sort of defense from enemies, as it was only about 5 feet tall. Since traces of ancient agriculture are more visible to the west of the wall than to the east, it's possible that it served as a boundary between ancient farmers and nomadic people, or that it served as another type of boundary. This theory is supported by the fact that the wall was likely built by the Bedouin people, who relied on herding and farming to survive in the arid environment of the Jordan Desert. As for the nearly 100 towers that were found scattered along the wall's length, it's believed that they served as watchtowers, shelters, or areas in which food and water supplies were stored. Again, the towers are deemed to be too small to serve any military purpose, as they only measure between 6.5 to 13 feet in diameter. Today, the wall faces many threats to its structural integrity, including looting, natural erosion, parts of the site that are being repurposed for agricultural use, and destruction due to conflicts and mining in the area. But many questions about the wall still remain, including its true purpose and who the people were that built it. Aerial archaeology is being undertaken to study more of the wall, since it covers such a vast area, and around 115,000 photographs are currently being studied to possibly, one day, help us understand more about this ancient archaeological discovery. In 1920, a British pilot named Lionel Rees was flying over the region that we now know as Jordan when he discovered a set of 12 unexplained ancient artifacts that we now know as the Big Circles of Jordan. He decided to take a few photos of his discovery, and these are now considered to be some of the earliest aerial archaeology photos taken of the massive structures. For some reason, not much attention was given to the discovery until 60 years later, in 1980, and only in the last 10 years have they really gained the attention they deserve. David Kennedy, a researcher at the University of Western Australia, found that the circles are actually 2,000 years old. They are low stone walls that measure between 720 feet and 1,200 feet across. It was also found that the walls originally didn't have any openings, meaning that they could not have been used as corrals since they're too low to serve that purpose. There are also no structures that would have helped maintain a herd of animals, though one of the circles does contain 3 cairns, but it's believed that these were added later, and they were used for burials. Kennedy asserts that the structures would not have been very hard to construct, as 12 people working for a week could have easily completed the task using local rocks. The shape and sheer size of the structures would have taken some serious planning though, as some of the circles are almost perfectly round. This could have been achieved by employing one person to act as a type of architect who would have tied a long rope to a post and then walked in a circle, marking the ground as they went along. This would also explain the imperfections in some of the circles that cross uneven land, where the architect could not have kept walking in a perfect circle. For the time being, satellite imagery and aerial archaeology are being used to properly map the circles, but to further understand the purpose that they served, more groundwork will need to be done, and for now, we will have to wait to learn more about the structures and the ancient civilization that built them. Thanks to the discovery of ancient artifacts that date back 300,000 years, we know that our ancestors in Africa began crafting small tools using stone flakes, creating a technique known as levallois. This technique involved the shaping of a raw piece of stone until it resembled the shape of a tortoise shell, flat at the bottom and rounded at the top. The top edges of the rock could then be struck to flake off sharp, flat sections, which were perfect for use as tools and in some cases, weapons. This technique is commonly associated with people who lived during the Middle Paleolithic Age, which scientists claim spanned from 300,000 to 30,000 years ago. The technique is named after a suburb in Paris where these tools were first discovered, and is considered to be a massive step forward from the much bigger, crude tools that were used in previous eras. The technique has also been found in discoveries made in Europe, and we have always believed that this technology spread around the globe much later, after humans moved away from Africa. However, a discovery made by scientists in India has all but upended this theory. Thousands of tools made with the levallois technique have been found in one of the country's most prolific archaeological sites, near the city of Chennai. More than 7,000 stone tools dating back to about 385,000 years, according to scientists, seem to suggest that the people who inhabited the area at the time had a greater understanding of tool crafting than previously thought. This means that Homo sapiens must have moved out of Africa much sooner than previously believed, and that they most likely brought this technique with them. It's also possible, and in fact quite probable, that more ancestral humans may have developed the technique on their own, independent of the tools that were being created in Africa. This has brought about the question of how prominent India actually was in the history and development of humans throughout history. No human fossils have been found at the site, making it impossible to ascertain who the people were that crafted the tools, and leaving us with an unexplained archaeological discovery that may never be solved. This odd piece of footage was filmed in the basement of the uploader's home and shows what appears to be a human figure wandering back and forth in a darkened room. The figure can just barely be made out, but appears to be about 5 feet tall, pacing back and forth within the room, seeming to be nervous or anxious about something. The uploader states that the house is part of a project located just about 20 miles away from the city. The CCTV camera was installed to deter thieves. The film is really poor quality, but the uploader states that he didn't want to manipulate the footage in any way that would allow others to insist that it had been doctored. The clip has become quite popular in recent weeks, though no one can decide exactly what the video depicts, other than a potential ghost. This next clip was uploaded to YouTube and was originally recorded from a doorbell camera. In the beginning, nothing appears to be odd or concerning. The camera is casually positioned away from the front door, aimed toward the street and sidewalk. However, after a brief moment, you can see an orb of light heading toward the camera. Trees just in the distance also begin to move. A short ways through the clip, you can then hear a disembodied voice sound as though it's whispering, "I'll kill you." Viewers stated that they noticed the sound is much different from all the other background noise, though they aren't necessarily convinced that it's a ghost. Some say that it kind of sounds like a distorted barking dog, but take a listen and let us know what you think it is. This next clip was posted in the middle of May of 2019 and was uploaded by a US war veteran who was awoken when his motion sensors began to go off in the middle of the night. According to the Ring app, motion had been detected just outside of his front door. He headed to the door and found nothing, though he then checked the Ring app and replayed the footage only to be met with a strange discovery. 6 orbs of light, all in a row, appeared and disappeared on camera. They were moving in an unpredictable way and seemed to be causing no harm or lighting up any of their surroundings, at least not much. The uploader states that while he has no idea what it is, he tells himself that it's just a spider web or something of the sort. He says that he's thoroughly creeped out, but has genuinely no idea of what it could be. His friends have suggested it could be anything from a ghost to the presence of an alien. A policeman from New Mexico was on duty and watched security camera footage of his surrounding location when he caught a glimpse of something completely unexplainable. In the footage, you can very clearly see a shadowy figure walking around the parking lot, seeming to walk right through a gate at one point. The officer said that at first he thought it was a fly or a bug or something, but then he noticed the human proportions and legs and knew that he had likely just seen a ghost or a spirit. The video is certainly a bit difficult to make out, though the officer says that the ghostly appearances like this aren't uncommon at the police station, and that several officers have reported ghostly activity very similar to this. He says that he firmly believes in ghosts, and thinks that it's possible that some of these ghosts are appearing in response to unsolved crimes that are scattered around the area. The description of this next video is a bit lacking, so bear with us for not having all of the details. But the description of the video states that a patrolman was finishing up his shift when he heard a strange noise coming from inside one of the planes that were parked nearby. He went inside to investigate, and at the end of the aisle, he captured footage of a shadowy figure that peered around a corner at him. He says that he left the plane trembling in fear, and that he'd heard multiple doors slamming on the plane. No further investigations were conducted, and this appears to have been a one-off occurrence. Be it a ghost, a demon, or an alien, let us know what your thoughts on this clip are in the comments.
Verga. No mames. Verga.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.